ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनाशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मायं ददाति स्वापदन्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरू श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सहगजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखां स्वितंश्च नमां विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिविकास स्वामिनिति नामिने नमां विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे वंशकल्पातरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामा राम रामा हरे हरे। Thank you so much, all devotees, for joining in. I just wanted to check, Avsit Prabhu, do you want to start reading it today? I know Prabhu is always eager. I'm giving mic access to you. And then, Ronald Prabhu, if you also want to um, read, please let us know. Yeah. So I am giving mic access to you, Asit Prabhu. Whenever you are comfortable, chapter 18, you can start.
In chapter 18, criticism, fault finding, and judgmentalism.
Can you repeat it again because the mic got activated now? Just start
Okay.
again.
So, am I audible?
Yes.
Chapter 18, criticism, fault finding, and judgmentalism. A devotee never tries to agitate others or criticize them unnecessarily. This was stated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in his commentary on verses 11.11.29 to 32 of Srimad Bhagavatam. The word unnecessarily implies that criticism is sometimes necessary. Blanket application of the principle of non criticism would not only be impractical but also dangerous, for it would obfuscate distinctions between good and bad, right and wrong. Moreover, to suspend appropriate discrimination would mean that no standards could be set, thus rendering our preaching mission ineffectual. For instance, there would be no criteria for judging who is fit or unfit for initiation or for living in an ashram. Thus, in this context, unnecessarily can be understood to mean that a devotee should not criticize others or risk agitating them unless they or others can be benefited by so doing. In his commentary on those verses, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.11.29 to 32, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati also stated, a devotee, unable to tolerate seeing how the world populace is merged in ignorance and is suffering the whiplashes of Maya, busily engages in distributing Krishna consciousness. Such preaching necessarily entails pointing out all that is errant and all that should be given up, as well as exposing cheaters and their cheating. Indeed, it is the duty of a devotee to discriminate between proper and improper, just as a swan extracts milk from a mixture of milk and water. Srila Prabhupada warned against suspending one's discrimination so as to appear mild and moderate. A good man or woman accepts anything very easily, but a man of average intelligence does not do so. But anyway, we should not give up our reason and discriminatory power just to be gentle. One must have good discriminatory power to judge a thing on its merit. We should not follow the mild nature of a woman and thereby accept that which is not genuine. Although it might appear to be lofty, non judgmentalism is actually a high sounding cover for condoning rascaldom. Although to refrain from making value judgments is considered night sacrosanct by modern pluralistic man, Krishna describes as demonic those persons who do not distinguish between proper and improper action. Non judgmentalism is actually compounded rascality, for it lends to rascality a false aura of acceptability and even nobility. In secular society, and sometimes also among devotees, non judgmentalism is an excuse to gloss over a host of sins, as is apparent in today's widespread sanction of social evils such as illicit sex, abortion, and divorce. Various demons adopt this so called non judgmentalism because they want to redefine morality in terms of gratifying every illicit bodily and mental urge that they are addicted to. As humanists, they believe there is nothing higher than themselves, and accordingly, that there cannot be anything terribly wrong with their own vices. Most putative non judgmentalists are non judgmental only of others who tolerate their hypocrisy, and they will lambast anyone who opposes them. Actually, non judgmentalism is an absurd proposition, for no one in this world can live for a moment without constantly evaluating everything that he comes in contact with or hears about. Absolute non judgmentalism would require the suspension of all legal systems, thus extending a carte blanche to reprobate criminals. Clearly, the line must be drawn somewhere, and to delineate exactly where requires making value judgments. Actually, the plea for non judgmentalism is actuated by a misconceived sense of fairness born of intellectual and ethical laziness. Certainly, one should be fair to others, but that should be in accordance with the standards of right and wrong prescribed by Shastra, not those of humanists, atheists, and other relativists who, impelled by the Mayavad of not admitting any distinctions, recognize no ultimate right or wrong. Thus, they tend to blur the distinction between vice and virtue or wholly redefine them. For instance, by insisting that sexual promiscuity is a natural right and that opposition to it is an injustice. Devotees who are enthralled by the fallacy of non judgmentalism cite it to illegitimately legitimize certain behavior, such as mixing loosely with the opposite sex or eating food cooked by non devotees. That by proper Vaishnava judgment should be considered illegitimate, overlooking the fact that non judgmentalism is entirely contrary to Srila Prabhupada's teachings and praxis. Some who tout it claim support from the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.28.1 to 2. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Parasvabhava Karmani Na Prasham Sena Na Grahet Vishwam Ekatma Makam Pashyam Prakriti Purushena Cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one should neither praise nor blame the conditioned nature and activities of other persons. Rather, one should see this world as simply the combination of material nature and the enjoying souls, all based on the one absolute truth. परस्वभाव कर्माणि या प्रशंसाति निंदति स आशु भ्रश्याते स्वस्थात् असति अभिनिवेशतः. The Jnani who indulges in praising or criticizing the qualities and behavior of others will quickly fall from his position of Jnana by his entanglement in illusory dualities. Footnote. This is the BBT translation, except the Garehat, translated as criticize, is herein rendered as the stronger and more accurate word blame. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that these verses explain Jnana Yoga of the Advaita, Mayavad philosophy, and are particularly aimed at adherents of that path. Nevertheless, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has cited the first of the above cited verses to warn against blasphemy of devotees. Of the two injunctions, the one proscribing criticism is more important than that proscribing praise. Thus, non judgmentalism is valid in the sense that one should not be quick to condemn, but rather with a generous and unbiased heart, one should evaluate all sides of an issue before coming to a conclusion about any alleged wrong. And of course, a devotee should glorify Vaishnavas and be cautious not to unnecessarily criticize them. But these verses should be understood in context for the overall message of Srimad Bhagavatam and of all Vaishnavacharyas is highly critical of all that is non-devotional and pseudo-devotional. Therefore, this injunction should be accepted as a proscription of criticism enacted from the mundane platform. Dvite bhadra bhadra gyana sabe mano dharma ei bhala ei mandas ei sab brahma. In the material world, conceptions of good and bad are all mental speculations. Therefore, saying this is good and this is bad is all mistake. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Ante Leela, 4th chapter, 176th verse. In other words, a transcendentalist should not make distinctions based on notions of material sense enjoyment, such as considering one woman to be beautiful and therefore desirable, and another woman to be ugly and therefore undesirable, as Srila Prabhupada explained in his purport to the above verse. When one is absorbed in the illusory energy of Krishna and cannot understand Krishna, one cannot ascertain what is good for him and what is bad. Conceptions of good and bad are all imaginations or mental speculations. When one forgets that he is an eternal servant of Krishna, he wants to enjoy the material world through different plans. At that time, he distinguishes between material plans that are good and those that are bad. Actually, however, they are all false. So it is not that criticism is wholly prohibited. It is not our business to criticize anyone, but the real truth must be stated. However, one should know what and how to criticize in terms of Shastric injunctions. As stated by Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, the faults of others can be deliberated upon if one has a virtuous motive. We should consider that without the right motive, it is inappropriate to reflect, even impartially, upon the faults of any living being, what to speak of Vaishnavas. To blaspheme pure Vaishnavas is an offense. But even blaspheming other jivas is a sin. Vaishnavas have no interest in performing such a sinful act. However, provided one has the right motive, the scriptures have not condemned a careful critique of someone's faults. Proper motive is of three types. desiring the welfare of the person criticized, desiring the welfare of the world, and desiring one's own welfare. There are three types of proper motive. First, if the intention in analyzing someone's sins is to ensure that he attains his ultimate welfare, then such reflection is auspicious. Second, if the motive behind reflecting on someone's sins is to benefit the entire world, then this is to be counted as an auspicious act. Third, if such reflection is undertaken for one's own spiritual welfare, then also it is auspicious. There is no fault in such reflection. When a disciple humbly asks his spiritual master to instruct him on how to identify a Vaishnava, the spiritual master, desiring the welfare of his disciple and of the whole world, explains that those who exhibit unholy behavior are non Vaishnavas. He thus points out how to identify true Vaishnavas through antithesis, with the motive of encouraging one to accept the shelter of the lotus feet of a true Vaishnava. By abandoning false so called preachers of religion, one neither risks committing blasphemy of saints, sadhuninda, nor Vaishnava aparat. In such cases, even criticism directed at a specific person is free from fault. These are all examples of criticizing with the proper motive. Considering all these points, it is impertinent, if not mendacious, to claim, on the basis of skewed assumptions derived from verses such as the above, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.28.1 to 2, that the message of Shastra is one of unqualified non criticism. In Vedic culture, no one would dare broadcast a conclusion without first having assiduously performed Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, hearing the purport of Shastra, explained by a qualified guru, endeavoring to comprehend that instruction and deeply reflecting on it over a prolonged period. Footnote: Shravan Manan and Nididhyasan are common terms in Vedantic discourse derived from Brihad Arnakya Upanishad 6.5.6. However, it is yet another curse of this accursed age that persons who were raised on cartoons and popcorn, who are ignorant of the depth and profundity of Shastra and the explications of the Acharyas, mindlessly mask their own shallowness under the guise of sacred authority. Non judgmentalism is often upheld by an analogy common in the modern West and a favorite of some devotees. When you point your finger, there's always three pointed back at you. A lot of times, what happens when we condemn other people is that we are condemning precisely what's wrong with ourselves. That's why it is said that when you point your finger at someone, three fingers of your hand are pointing right back at you. In contemporary psychology, such a mindset is called projection, by which hypercritical persons ascribe their own inadequacies to others. This is redolent of the Sanskrit saying, Atmaman manete jagat, thinking everyone else to be like oneself. Yet, it would be ridiculous to attribute this supposed syndrome to every person who draws attention to others' errors, as if only those who point out faults are at fault. Certainly, it is wrong to criticize that which should not be criticized, but it is also wrong to fail to criticize that which should be criticized. As stated in the Kurma Purana, अन्यथोपासकाये तु तमो अन्धं यान्ति असंशयाम् ततोऽधिकम् एवाव्यक्तं यान्ति तेषाम् अनिन्दकः तस्माद् यथा स्वरूपं च नारायणम् अनामयम् आयत् अथा अर्थस्य निन्दं च ये विदु सहसा जना ते निन्दया अथा अर्थस्य दुःख अजानन्दी रूपिणा दुःख अजानन्दी शान्तिर्न सुख ज्ञानन्दी रूपिणा यथा अर्हस्य परिज्ञानात् सुख ज्ञानाति रूपतम yanti. Undoubtedly, the worshippers of deities other than Vishnu go to blinding darkness. But even more so do those who do not criticize such worshippers. They are true devotees who know Narayan in his true form, which is free from faults, and who simultaneously criticize those with with false knowledge. By criticizing false knowledge, which is full of sorrow and ignorance, they cross over sorrow and ignorance. By knowing the complete truth, which is full of bliss and knowledge, they attain bliss and knowledge. End quote. Thus, the preacher of Krishna consciousness, whom Krishna considers the best of all people, is obliged to point out defects. Srila Prabhupada. The position of the preacher is Madhyam Adhikari. Therefore, they have to point out he's a jealous man, envious man. But people do not want it. They say, why you are pointing out? But this is business of the preacher. Otherwise, how will he preach? Giriraj. They want to be artificially the Uttam Adhikari to see everyone as nice. Shri Prabhupada, yes. Everyone is nice except himself. That is Uttam Adhikari vision. That everyone is nice. Then you should accept that the preacher is also nice. Why do you find fault with the preacher? Imitation Uttam Adhikari will not help. By Uttam Adhikari vision, Srila Prabhupada refers to that whereby an advanced devotee sees that everyone is a devotee except himself. The advanced devotee sees that he is not a devotee, but all others are devotees. To be uncritical and to see only the good in others is the natural decoration of a Paramahamsa who is above all distinctions and is aloof from the world. It is a qualification of a Vaishnava that he is Adosh Darshi. He never sees others' faults. Of course, every human being has both good qualities and faults. Therefore, it is said, Sadjnana Gunam Icchanti Dosham Icchanti Parama. Everyone has a combination of faults and glories. But a Vaishnava, a sober man, accepts only a man's glories and not his faults. For flies seek sores, whereas honeybees seek honey. End quote. A devotee never finds faults. A devotee never finds fault with others, but tries to find his own and thus rectify them as far as possible.
Prabhuji, if you want, we can take it over.
Sure, Prabhu. You can
Thank you.
continue.
Thank you. Anybody else, if they want to read, please chat so that we can give it back to you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Asit Prabhu. Very good. Continuing, these statements, although apparently unequivocally proscribing fault finding, have to be taken in context and reconciled with the many seemingly opposite instructions. It is not a devotee's nature to look for faults, to seek source, or to wrongly ascribe faults to others, but still, it is his duty to point out genuine faults wherever they exist. Footnote. The reasoning for this parallels the discussion on unnecessary criticism that opens this chapter and continues throughout it. And footnote. As Srila Prabhupada pointed out, to call a thief is not fault finding. It is also a duty of more advanced devotees to correct neophytes, which often involves criticizing them to reveal and dismantle their anarthas, particularly when particularly those who have taken the responsibility of acting as guru show no mercy towards their disciples' mundane attachments. To cut something, a sharp instrument is required, and to cut the mind from its attachments, sharp words are often required. The sadhu or teacher shows no mercy in using sharp words to sever the student's mind from material attractions. By speaking the truth uncompromisingly, he is able to sever the bondage. For example, at the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks sharply to Arjuna by telling him that although he speaks like a learned man, he is actually fool number one. If we actually want detachment from this material world, we should be prepared to accept such cutting words from the spiritual master. For the sake of training and protecting their disciples, Vaishnava gurus are obliged to criticize non devotees. In protest against Srila Prabhupada's denunciation of Mayavadi speculations, a man once screamed at him, "Why do you always criticize? You always criticize so many different people." Srila Prabhupada patiently replied, "What can we do? We have to train our disciples against all kind of deviant philosophies. Therefore, sometimes we have to criticize." Prabhu, I will take the mic access, yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. This poses a dilemma, for fault finding is direly warned against in Vaishnava Shastras. Fault finding vitiates the atmosphere within Vaishnava society and can swiftly destroy an aspiring devotee's spiritual advancement. Thus, all devotees, and especially neophytes, many of whom are particularly prone to this dangerous tendency, need to be gravely cautious against it. But to overly emphasize non criticism, as is the perennial wont of neophytes and Prakatya Sahajias, to the extent of stating that devotees should never, under any circumstances, see wrong in anyone, means to forever keep devotees as blinkered, unthinking, and thus easily manipulated, Kanishta Adhikaris, and to open the door to all kinds of deviations. On the one hand, devotees are not fine on the one hand, devotees are not to find faults in other Vaishnavas, particularly seniors, and on the other hand, they are not to stand by idly and watch speculations and deviations cause defilement of the parampara. Vaishnava etiquette is misunderstood and misapplied if the principle of not finding fault is overstressed to the extent of violating another essential principle, that of trying to enlighten people who are on a wrong path. This is similar to not trying to prevent a blind man from falling into a ditch on the plea of not interfering with the right to walk whenever he pleases. If the Shastric injunction against finding fault is overemphasized to the degree that it becomes impossible to question whether a person or a group is acting against the tenets of Shastra, then devotees are no longer seeing through the eyes of Shastra, for they have accepted only one teaching of Shastra while disregarding another. This is Ardha Kukuti Nyaya, half end logic, analogous to decapitating a chicken so as to not have to feed it, yet vainly accepting to still procure eggs from its rear. A maxim that portrays the futility in accepting some scriptural teachings while whimsically rejecting others. Similarly, unity among Vaishnavas is not desirable if it requires compromising the basic tenets of Srila Prabhupada's teachings. A realistic approach is required to distinguish malicious fault finding from the Shastra based discrimination, whereby one is able to see and understand, not to simply ignore certain observed shortcomings of others, and to discern in which instances and by what means one should attempt to rectify the situation. To publicly expose such errors should usually be among the last of options. Some detractors question how a person who calls others fools and rascals can be considered saintly, when in normal respectable society to do so, especially habitually, is considered most uncouth. Do devotees who utter such damning epithets not violate Krishna's description of a devotee as being Advesta Sarva Bhutanam Maitra Karuna Evacha, kind and friendly to all, with malice towards none? Srila Prabhupada responded to such a claim. Hridayananda Sometimes, Prabhupada, when we expose them, their argument is, "Oh, you are a saintly person. Why are you criticizing me?" Srila Prabhupada, no, it is not criticizing. It's opening your eyes. You are blind with ignorance. So we are trying to open your eyes. See things are see things as they are. It is favoring you. It is not criticizing you. End quote. To call a person whose intention is to cheat and exploit others a rascal is not malice or unnecessary criticism, but realism. Quote, when you are preaching, we have to show the real truth. That is not criticizing. It is just like if you call a thief a thief. If you point out, this man is a thief, this is not criticizing. If I warn that, don't mix with Gaura Sundara, he is a thief, and suppose he is a thief, is it criticizing? End quote. It is also it is also realism to recognize that the sociability of a normal respectable society is largely a sophisticated facade covering ubiquitous rascaldom in every sphere of life. To point this out by calling the rascals rascals is meant to check the rascals' nefarious activities. The exposing of any particular rascal aims to benefit not only those whom he intended to cheat, but also the rascal himself by curbing his incurrence of ever more severe sinful reactions. In this way, devotees exhibit actual goodwill and kindness towards the entire society of rascals by pointing out that the rascals are indeed rascals, although rascals will never agree, having manufactured their own norms of respectability. Among rascals, it is deemed saintly to praise each other as magnanimous personalities, and thus, within the society of rascals, most of today's population, it has become reprehensible to state that rascals who defy Krishna are indeed nothing but rascals. If someone describes a rascal as a saint, the rascal will surely believe himself to be so, and moreover, he will avail of that appellation to suavely further his criminal activities. But devotees should not be fooled by the rascal into joining the social convention of not calling rascals rascals, for in so doing, they identify with the rascals and themselves become rascals. Thus, Srila Prabhupada warned preaching means we have to preach amongst the rascal, but you do not become rascal. The currently prevalent idea that it is wrong to call others wrong is itself wrong. Rather, it is the duty of those who know that is what is right to inform others that all they are doing is wrong. Those who discharge this duty are liable to be criticized as being egoistic, but actually, failure to criticize that which should be criticized is false egoism, for it deviates from the soul's pure function to always adhere to the truth. A roundabout, non critical approach is certainly likely to be better received by insincere people than would the truth, which they avoid. But for devotees to persistently neglect to present the truth to non devotees means acquainting with and reinforcing the insincerity of the insincere. Actually, a true devotee's praise or censure demonstrates his saintliness as much as insincere person's praise or censure reveals their insincerity. Devotees praise or censure others to benefit them. The insincere do so to further their selfish ends or to bolster their ego. In the Bhagavad Gita 16.2, Lord Krishna declares that Apayasunam, aversion to fault finding, is a godly quality. The full import of this term may be understood from its standard translation, non columni. Gauranga. Calumny is defined as false and malicious statement designed to injure the reputation of someone or something, slander, defamation. Thus, the didactic criticism levied by great souls who are dedicated to the uplift of others or by persons sincerely attempting to serve the mission of such great souls should not be equated with a spiteful, egoistic, fault finding of petty persons, but as meant to mercifully waken people to their plight. Being true friends of everyone, pure devotee harbor no grudges or intrinsic bad feelings towards even the worst of rascals. As in the case of Jagai and Madai, genuine devotees will gladly excuse any rascal who is ready to reform, but they do not sentimentally fail. Oh, Jagannath. I don't know what happened. Yeah. Yeah. They do not sentimentally fail to differentiate between rascals and non rascals, or desist from informing rascals that they are indeed rascals. Particularly Madhyam Adhikaris, as well as those Paramhamsas who, out of compassion, accept the Madhyam Adhikari platform for preaching to and uplifting fallen souls, are required to be judgmental of everything and everyone not Krishna conscious. The Madhyam Adhikari incessantly distinguishes reality from illusion for the welfare of all persons rotting in ignorance and headed towards a very dark future. He must also discriminate on the basis of Shastric descriptions between different levels of devotees, which entails that he be aware of the lackings of less than consummate devotees. Footnote. See Srimad Bhagavatam 3.2.9 7 to 12, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.44 to 47, and Upadesha Amrita 5. And footnote. As and when necessary, we must discreetly point out such failings to correct the perpetrators and to warn others against emulating them. Another common claim is that it is inappropriate for devotees to criticize others if, as in many cases, they themselves were recently engaged in illicit activities. This argument is blind to the dimension of compassionate belligerence and presumes that all criticism is egoistic and meant to demean others. Moreover, it may be argued that devotees who have fresh memories of their previous vices are in the best position to apprise others of the iniquities thereof. Those sworn to unqualified non criticism not only fail to follow in the footsteps of the Vaishnava Acharyas, who are highly critical, but by posing as more saintly and wise than they, are subtly offensive towards them. Actually, apart from the rare Uttama Adhikari, who is described as Nindadi Shunya, devoid of the propensity to criticize others, the Madhyam Adhikari preacher is the only true, inoffensive person, for he avoids the offense of either directly or indirectly ratifying the non devotee's offensiveness towards Krishna. Moreover, to insinuate offensiveness in reference to such actually inoffensive devotees, it's itself an offense. Footnote, sorry, quote, Srila Jiva Goswami has pointed out that when a first class devotee or even a second class devotee rejects the atheistic class of men, he is expressing the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A first class or second class Vaishnava never actually becomes envious of another living entity, but out of intense love for the Supreme Lord, he becomes angry when the Lord is offended. Also, understanding the Lord's mission, he discriminates according to the position of a particular living entity. To consider such a Vaishnava preacher an ordinary, envious person, or to consider him sectarian because of his proclamation of pure devotional service as the most exalted of all methods of spiritual advancement, reflects a materialistic vision called Vaishnave Jati Buddhi or Gurushu Nara Mati. Such an offense drags the offender down to a hellish condition of life by the laws of nature. Still another fault of person who deplore seeing faults is their hypocrisy in criticizing others for being critical. Those who condemn condemnation of non-devotees are infected by a kind of impersonalism, a monolithic view of reality that obstructs the rasa that arises from dislike of Krishna. Quote, a Kanishta Adhikari is disturbed if a second class devotee criticizes the non devotee of the Lord. In the name of compassion or kindness, a Kanishta Adhikari approves of the non devotional activities of such materialistic men. He becomes angry when second class devotee criticizes the non devotees. End of quote. In fact, it is from the Babaji class and so called traditional Vaishnavas, those for whom preaching Krishna consciousness is not their life and soul, that the repeated call to never criticize others emanates. Members of ISKCON who adopt this motto necessarily cannot be preachers of Srila Prabhupada's highly caustic message. Their plea to see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, far from being saintly, is but irresponsible utopianism. A, a, a ruse, a ruse, a ruse for circumventing difficult issues and avoiding moral judgments, a means for floating in a dream of being spiritual without actually being deeply committed, a form of cowardice and impotency masquerading as patience and wisdom, and a dangerous, subtle cover for deviations. There's a difference between humility and stupidity, and it is nonsense to laud the kind of passivity that remains undisturbed even amid errant deviation. Um, Anybody wants to read more? I see Krishna Keshav Prabhu. You want to read? Vijay Krishna Prabhu, Jagannath Prabhu. Please let us know, otherwise, we'll continue. Chapter 19, Love and Compassion. Materialist people spend their whole life swallowing like hogs in the gutter of sense gratification. For them, love and compassion means to facilitate others' hoggish enjoyment. For instance, by being lenient and non judgmental and dealing with others so that they feel good. But such niceness is a trap, a foolish, ignorant semblance of actual love and compassion. For without proper guidance and correction, people will tend to devolve to the lowest level. Thus, real love, real friendship does not mean to indulge others in doing what they like, but to lead them to the proper path, even against their own will. Quote, many are the sinful men in this world who speak agreeably, but rare is one who speak that which is disagreeable but beneficial. In this world, there are multitudes of men who are given to hearing and uttering pleasant words, but few are the men who hear and utter words that are most salutary yet jarring to the ears. End quote. Srila Prabhupada explicated this phenomenon by telling the story of a young man who had been raised liberally by his aunt. Gradually, by bad association, the boy became a thief. Out of affection, the aunt did not chastise him, rather, she encouraged him. You are bringing so many things without any labor. Eventually, he committed a murder and was sentenced to death. On the gallows, when granted a last request to speak into the ear of his aunt, he leaned towards her and bit off her ear, declaring, if you had not spoiled me, I would not hear I would not be here today. Srila Prabhupada explained the distinction between genuine and false love. Quote, the actual fact is that there is no love in this material world. That is false propaganda. What they call love here is lust only, or desire for personal sense gratification. Outside of loving God, there is no possibility of loving. Rather, there's a lusty desire only. So called love here means that you gratify my senses, I'll gratify your senses. And as soon as that gratification stops, immediately there is divorce, separation, quarrel, and hatred. Actual love means love of God, Krishna. Actual love is not material, so it should not be judged on the false, sentimental platform of ordinary, mundane dealings. To say that devotees are not loving may be true from the materialist point of view. They are given up affection for family, friends, wife, country, race, and so on, which is all based upon the bodily concept of life, of flickering sense gratification. End quote. Real compassion arises from seeing that people are bereft of Krishna consciousness. Quote, a bona fide a bona fide devotee of Lord Krishna is always pained to see the fallen condition of the whole world. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, there is no scarcity of anything within this world. The only scarcity is of Krishna consciousness. That is the vision of all pure devotees. Because of this lack of Krishna consciousness in human society, people are suffering terribly, being merged in an ocean of nations and sense gratification. A devotee onlooker is very much aggrieved to see such a situation in the world. Srila Prabhupada compared material compassion to the attempt to relieve the pain of a boil by blowing on it. Tamala Krishna Goswami. In Rishikesh, Prabhupada was Prabhupada was every evening giving a class. The famous Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was also in Rishikesh at the time, and many of his teachers were coming to attend Prabhupada's lectures. So at that point, Maharishi sent a note to Prabhupada saying, Swamiji, I have heard that you are quite ill. Perhaps you should not exert yourself so much. Better not to lecture in the evenings, because he felt worried about so many of his teachers were listening to Prabhupada. One European lady was there, a very sweet lady, and she asked Prabhupada, it's very nice that you are preaching, but what are you doing for suffering of the people of the world? And you would think that Prabhupada would be very sensitive to her, being an elderly European lady. Well, Prabhupada just exploded. He said, what do you know about mercy? What do you understand about compassion? It is simply sentiment, he said. Your idea of giving some sort of relief to people suffering is like blowing air on a boil that's full of pus. This kind act, this kind act you can do for such a person is to cut it. So mercy means to cut through the ignorance that the persons are under, and our preaching is based on this understanding that ignorance causes suffering, and that to enlighten people is the way to free them from ignorance. End quote. A doctor who lances a child's boil, despite the child's agonized screams, may seem to be heartless, but no one else will object to his performing that noble, albeit messy, duty. Similarly, Vaishnava compassion may seem like cruelty, and Mayavad and worldly compassion may seem gentle and caring, but the latter is violence, for it keeps Jiva in the illusion that compels them to suffer unendingly. A devotee's compassion for the rebellious Jivas manifested as forceful attacks upon their foolishness and rascaldom is not appreciated by persons on the platform of superficial love and misplaced compassion. Genuine love and compassion for all living beings distinguished Srila Prabhupada both from his god brothers, none of whom sacrificed their life to anywhere near the extent that Srila Prabhupada did, simply to benefit others. And from materialistic gooders who divert attention away from people's actual need by advertising their own altruistic initiatives, such as feeding the underprivileged, offering education aimed at worldly advancement, and affording bodily medical treatment. Srila Prabhupada's spirit of compassion reflected that of Prahlad Maharaj, who prayed to Narsimha नैवोद्विजे परा दुरत्याय वेत्तारनयस्य त्वाद् वीर्यगायना महामृता मग्नचित्ता शोचे ततो विमुखचेतसा इन्द्रियार्था माया सुखाय भरम उद्वाहतो विमूढ़ान्. O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence. For wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thoughts of your glories and activities. My concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I'm simply concerned with love for them. Prahlad referring to fools and rascals is not dismissive condemnation, rather, his keen perception of the reality of suffering in material existence, coupled with his compassionate urge to deliver the unfortunate souls and rascals from their suffering, are prime symptoms of a truly advanced Vaishnava. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada's compassion manifested as a virtual war against all misleaders and cheaters, especially against Mayavadis and atheistic scientists. Devotees who follow the ideal of Prahlad Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada in truly caring for Krishna care also to rescue his estranged servants from their determined career into hell. Unless non devotees are understood to be rascals in need of rectification, there can be no question of extending compassion toward them. Rather, to think of rascals as gentlemen is the antithesis of compassion, as if forestalls even the idea of trying to rescue them. Confronted with a civilization that is being intentionally misled into hell, devotees are impelled to speak frankly out of devotional attachment to Lord Krishna and feeling poignant sympathy for persons determined to forget him, devotees cannot tolerate the pompous drivel spoke by rogues. They must boldly speak out to save the foolish rascals and to save the world. Quote, our leaders are simply misleading people, and the people in general are innocently following them to their ruin. So it is very much our duty to come to their aid and point out exactly how this sinful living, namely slaughtering animal, intoxication, illicit sex life, and gambling, how these sinful activities are so much degrading to the humankind and how they are only producing hippies, wars, and endless sufferings as a result. So, we want to give the citizens the positive value of the Krishna consciousness way of life. So, for that activity, we must always be preaching very strongly in the public. So, we have what we will do is we will do something different today. I'm stopping the reading, or let's say. So, Apurva Prabhu or Asit Prabhu, I am going to come open the mic for you. Can you share your realization for reading every day? How do you feel? What inspires you to come every day and read? And how
Okay.
do you feel about it?
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me, Prabhu? Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, Prabhu. So, this book on speaking strongly in Srila Prabhupada's service, written by His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj, expresses us expresses his sincerity in his commitment to Srila Prabhupada's teachings, like how Srila Prabhupada preached, how much, like we know that Srila Prabhupada went to the West and undertook so many difficulties to preach in the West, to make people Krishna conscious, to preach to the hippies, and and make them understand the philosophy. Did everything for them, and he said that preaching, as we know, that preaching is the essence. So the main focus of, as we know, that of everything is preaching. Of our mission, of our movement is preaching. So as we see that many we know that many persons, devotees, uh, we know that the preaching which goes on, um, I would say that it is not like sometimes it is not as per what Srila Prabhupada preached, as per the like how Srila Prabhupada preached, like what Srila Prabhupada desired from us. Uh, how we should preach.
Yeah.
So that's why to make those points clear, and so it is very good to listen again and again, like what is expected of a preacher. Then we will be able to, clearly distinguish between what is right and wrong. As so that's what is clearly mentioned in this book. That's very nice a delineation of Guru Maharaj's realizations.
And then what brings you here every day?
Um, my bringing me every day is like I feel very much inspired by the personal example of Guru Maharaj, of like how he uh, how he, like, as we know that um, um, an acharya is one who preaches and lives by those instructions. So we see everything what Guru Maharaj has mentioned here in this book, and he's really committed to the principle. And we hope that we may get some mercy, some fraction of mercy if we read. Actually, these books, it's very, because we should read what the realizations of um, senior advanced devotees, so that we can come to know also, like, whether we are on the right track. So it is very good actually to read and to know about what exactly we are expected to do. So that inspires me, like what Maharaj speaks and what Guru Maharaj conducts. So that is as per Guru Sadhu Shastra, and that inspires all of us to um, take these instructions in our lives and live by them.
So can I request you one thing? Very nicely put together. Take your time. For a 45 seconds to a 1 minute video, create it video full on why are you attending this? How is it helping you? It's like within a month, we are now almost going to finish the third book. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so individually we read, some of us, but not all are reading. So maybe when we are coming together, at least by the law of force efficiency, we are reading every day 1 hour together. Some examples, if you can create a video and send it to Krishna Keshav Prabhu, Vrindavan Chandra, or me, that will really feel obliged. And the second part which I want to tell everyone who are attending is, since it's so good, can we make it a practice that we go out in our day and get 5 more people to come and join these sessions? This can be devotees, your other friends. So get five every, so everyone should get 5 people who are inspired to read, whether they are reading Krishna, whether reading teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Bhagavad Gita, or even coming in these sessions. So we want all of you to become ambassador of goodwill like Srila Prabhupada, and take the words of Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and then create your own Sangha and bring them here. Can we get those two things, Prabhuji, Asit Prabhu? I'm putting you on the spot, but we request you to do that.
Okay, okay.
Huh?
Yeah, yeah, Prabhu. I'll try to propagate it to 5 people,
Yeah,
and those the other which you mentioned, that to make the video for the realization. Yeah, we'll get in touch with you for that. No problem.
brilliant. Thank you so much. And can I now, uh, Vijay Krishna Prabhu? Can I give mic to you? I'm giving mic to Vijay Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much, Asit Prabhu. Can you speak, Prabhuji? Jagannath Chandra Prabhu, you are next. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Vijay Krishna Prabhu, you have been given mic. Would you like to say something? Jagannath Prabhu, you can unmute yourself, Jagannath Prabhu. Oh, he's out. Okay, I don't want to put on spot, but what we want is get everyone five, and then if you have any realizations, then you can create a small video on how this everyday book reading is kind of bringing our sadhana little even better. What are your realizations? Just like Asit Prabhu very nicely put together. Let's try to put it out. Ronald Prabhu, you want to say something? You are the first one on the meeting every day, so thank you, Ronald. We'll keep it there. Okay, all. Krishna Keshav Prabhu is also out. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much, all. Thank you for sharing the realization. Let's all get more people in, because the idea is that what we have got, we want to give it to others. And I want all of you to speak, all of you to read, and all of you to get more people to now get acquainted with the treasure house which Guru Maharaj has penned, aspired, and derived from teachings of all our Vaishnavacharyas. Yeah. With this, oh, I see the mic going off for Ronald Prabhu. Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, do you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you. Hare Krishna. Very good.
Hare Krishna.
Every day you are among the first person. Thank you for joining in. I hope this reading is you are relishing it.
Yeah, it's very nice. The reading is very nice, and for me, it is very. This book is very strong as the book,
Hmm.
and also as is very delicate. All the points that we are and we are reading. Yeah.
Brilliant. At some point, I want you to also read it, Prabhuji. And where are you based out of, Ronald Prabhu?
I am from Bolivia, and actually I am in Guyana.
Oh
And
my God! So you're coming from attending it from Guyana is in Africa, or where is it?
Guyana is in the South America, in the
South
north part.
America.
Yeah, in the
Wow,
north part
Haribol.
of Brazil. Yeah,
So you are making the Lord Chaitanya's, prophecy. Huh? Every town and village, at least the continents are getting covered. Yeah, good.
I hope, we hope.
And
Yeah,
any so can I request you also take a video, 45 seconds to a minute, how you are inspired, because we want to inspire others to read books every day continuously till the end of their life. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So how to make that video,
just
Prabhuji?
use a phone, anything. Just keep it in front, or any of your
Okay,
laptop, and then create a small video of your realizations, how you feel, why, what inspires you, what are you looking at, so that other people can get inspired.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much, Ronald Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Hare
So
Krishna.
nice to hear your voice. Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving your association. With this, we come to the end of this session. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kipa sindhubhya evacha patitnam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Prabhuji, Ronald Prabhu from South America, you please chant one Hare Krishna Mahamantra from South America for the benefit of the planet.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Haribo
Hare
Jai.
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very nice. Yeah. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
everyone. Jai Shila Prabhupada.
Jai.